Mic check 1 2, mic check 1 2. Good morning, everyone. This is our captions test for our live stream. As a kind reminder, please remember before you come up here to speak to make sure that the yellow light is on or green light, whichever color you see. Just make sure this light is on, and after you are done, please push the button here that says push to turn the mic off so the next presenter can do the same process.
Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to call this meeting of the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality to order. Today is Wednesday, September 11, 2024. Time's 9:30 a.m. With us today are Commissioners Bobby Janeka and Katerina Gonzalez, as well as our General Counsel, Mary Smith, and I'm John Neerman. Registration has now closed, but if you'd like to address the Commission, I'll ask you to please visit our registration table or email agenda@tceq.texas.gov. Identify yourself by name, your affiliation, the item that you'd like to speak to, and we will do our best to accommodate your request. For those addressing the Commission today, our General Counsel or I will notify you of your time limit and let you know when it's your turn to speak. Thanks everybody for being present today. Ms. Smith, I'll ask you to please call the first item.
Item number 1 is the consideration of the ALJ's proposal for decision and proposed order concerning the enforcement action against STL Developer LLC. The order of presentation will begin with the ED, followed by the respondent, and then OPIC. By letter dated, in our letter to the parties, we indicated that each would have 5 minutes of oral argument time in accordance with the Commission standard practice. And the ED may save time for rebuttal as the ED bears the burden of proof. And so with that, we'll begin with the Executive Director.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. My name is Marilyn Norrid. I'm a staff attorney with the Litigation Division, and I'm here today representing the Executive Director. I'm here in support of the ALJ's proposal for decision and proposed order as amended by the Executive Director's exceptions regarding the enforcement action against STL Developer LLC. There are two violations at issue in this case. The first violation was that respondent caused, suffered, allowed, and permitted the disposal of municipal solid waste without authorization and disturbed the final cover of a closed municipal solid waste landfill without obtaining authorization from TCEQ. Specifically, 10,610 cubic yards of municipal solid waste consisting of plastics, household waste, treated lumber, glass, fabric, PVC piping, auto parts, concrete, brush, boilers, buckets of used oil, which left oil-stained soil next to those buckets, and approximately 45 scrap tires. The second violation was that the respondent failed to ensure that no waste was left overnight exposed for a closed municipal landfill. The ALJ found the executive director met its burden in proving these violations. The executive director also showed that the proposed administrative penalty of $4,725 was calculated in accordance with TCEQ's penalty policy. I would also note that that penalty could have been much higher, but in order to encourage the respondent to come into compliance, they were only given one count for these violations. The recommended corrective actions are also necessary for the respondent to return to compliance with TCEQ rules. The ED seeks that respondent is ordered to cease the disposal of any additional municipal solid waste, remove all excavated municipal solid waste and additional municipal solid waste dumped at the site sitting above ground. We also seek to have the respondent repair all exposed waste areas and maintain adequate cover in all landfill units and submit final recording, including the de-degradation of the landfill, and submit certification of compliance of the technical requirements. The ALJ found that the executive director met its burden in this regard as well. The executive director submitted minor exceptions to the proposed decision, all of which the ALJ accepted. Respondent submitted exceptions that the ALJ did not accept. Accordingly, we request that the Commission adopt the ALJ's proposed order as amended by the Executive Director's exceptions. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, and I reserve any remaining time for rebuttal.
Thank you, Ms. Norrid. I have no questions. Colleagues, any questions? Seeing none.
We have Eddie Lewis for the respondent.
Mr. Lewis, are you with us? Is there anybody present to represent the respondent?
I believe we also have Paloma Dominguez online.
Ms. Dominguez, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, we hear you. It's your turn. You can go ahead and identify yourself, and then the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, commissioners. My name is Paloma Dominguez, and I represent STL Developer. Thank you very much for your time this morning. We would like to take this opportunity to highlight a few important facts in this matter. First, we stress that when STL Developer purchased the property in hopes of creating a successful property development, it had no idea that the site had been used as a municipal landfill many decades earlier. Ever since making the unfortunate post-purchase discovery that the site had been used historically by the city of Laredo as a municipal landfill, STL Developer has been stuck in this limbo due to the unfortunate history. STL Developer did not contribute to any of the municipal waste found at the site. Additionally, the executive director has argued and continues to argue that the only allowable remediation for the municipal waste is that STL Developer be ordered to remove the waste to an authorized facility for disposal. However, in no small part due to the discovery of the historical landfill, this remediation is fiscally impossible for STL Developer to accomplish. STL has not been able to pay off its debts or develop the land as it has intended, meaning it does not have the financial ability to pay for the removal and authorized disposal of the municipal waste. Based on the estimates gathered by STL Developer representative Mr. Sergio, this cost could be approximately $600,000. Because STL Developer cannot afford the proposed remediation, STL is concerned that it will not be able to successfully carry out the remediation as proposed by the executive director. STL Developer wishes to avoid this possibility at all costs, and instead wishes to find a practical and permissible solution under the regulations. STL would like nothing more than to find a viable path forward for remediation. At the hearing, STL presented testimony and evidence regarding such an alternative path where the waste could be reburied under 30 Texas Administrative Code Section 330-955C. STL developer understands that the TCEQ has previously allowed this sort of plan to move forward, and STL would be committed to working with the TCEQ and executive director to successfully fulfill this or any other feasible remediation allowed under all applicable regulations. In summation, STL developer respectfully requests that the commission issue a ruling ordering a feasible alternative form of remediation. And we once again thank you for your time this morning.
Ms. Dominguez, you broke up just a little bit after you said the word remediation. Can you say that last sentence again?
I just said thank you once again for your time this morning.
Okay, thank you very much. Colleagues, any questions for Ms. Dominguez? Okay.
Give OPEC.
Morning, Mr. Martinez.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Executive Director. My name is Elon Martinez, and I'm with the Office of Public Interest Counsel for the record. We participated in the hearing for this case, and we recommend adoption of the ALJ's proposal for decision, including the corrective actions that are crux to the disagreement in this matter. The respondent did not dispute being owner of the site, contest the violation findings, or deny digging into and disturbing the final cover of a closed MSW landfill during development activities without obtaining prior authorization from the executive director. Further, respondent moved and gathered MSW from the landfill in multiple areas, including on a creek bed feeding into the Rio Grande River, and has left that MSW exposed since April of 2018, thereby causing suffering, allowing or permitting the dumping or disposal of MSW without authorization in ecologically sensitive and consequential areas. These actions created a nuisance capable of attracting vermin and vectors and encouraging illegal dumping, endangered human health and welfare and the environment, and caused the discharge or threat of discharge of MSW into or adjacent to the waters of the state without commission authorization. Respondent also did not contest the ED's recommended penalty in the amount of $4,725, which we agree was assessed in compliance with applicable law and the commission's penalty policy. As the owner of the site, respondent is responsible for the site's cleanup and proper disposal of the MSW. While respondent claims it cannot afford to remove and dispose of the approximate 10,610 cubic yards of excavated MSW from the site at an authorized facility, and therefore seeks authorization under Rule 330.955C to rebury and cap the MSW at the site's closed landfill, these actions would exceed the clear scope of the rule, which allows the executive director at her discretion to authorize redeposit of small amounts of solid waste, such as that extracted during testing. The mass of MSW at issue in these proceedings exceeds the clearly intended extent of this rule. As noted by the ALJ, the Deepwood project cited by the respondent as analog to its reburial proposal is inapplicable, as several aspects of the respondent's consolidation application were not addressed by providing necessary information requested by the executive director, and the application has since been withdrawn. Further, there was no demonstration at the hearing that the Deepwood project was in fact analogous or had even been authorized under Rule 330.955C, as no applications, plans, approvals, or supporting documents were provided to support this finding. We therefore agree with the PFD's recommendation that the commission assess respondent a total of $4,725 in penalties for the violations proven in this case and require implementation of the ED's requested corrective action. Thank you. We're available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Colleagues, any questions? Seeing none. Ms. Norwood, I think you have 2 minutes and 27 seconds left for rebuttal.
Okay, I'll try and fit it in. The respondent is stating that they should not be held responsible for digging up a municipal solid waste landfill because they didn't know it was there. The law puts the burden on a real estate developer to look before they start developing. And most developers know that. They'll get a phase 1 environmental study done. The law requires them to do core samples specifically designed to look for landfills because they are, unfortunately, all over the country and not necessarily that visible. You do have to look before you dig. The respondent did not deny that they had dug up this large quantity of municipal solid waste from this landfill without seeking authorization. Their main complaint is that they don't want to pay to clean it up, but they have not offered any kind of alternative technical requirement that is enforceable to us, despite our asking repeatedly for them to come up with something that they would be willing to do. In our estimates, The cost of it would be about $134,964 to remove the MSW and take it to a licensed facility near the respondent's land. And that is based on our enforcement coordinators putting this information through what they call the municipal solid waste calculator, which is based on costs in the community where the respondent lives. The respondent says that the cost would be $600,000. At the hearing, they pulled the number $1 million. They didn't offer any kind of estimate or receipt to support this amount. This is just what they're afraid it is. I assume we have gotten nothing in discovery or offered at trial that supported that amount. The amount that is in the PCW, which is attached to the EDFARP, is $134,964. And while that is a lot of money, that is not beyond a reasonable amount to clean it up. In fact, it is the most efficient, least expensive way to take care of the problem. And it's the one that we usually recommend. That would be it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nord. Colleagues, any questions? Okay. Well, I'm certainly sympathetic to an entity that purchases a property with unknown potential liabilities, in this case, liabilities that have been realized. That said, I agree that the executive director has met its burden. The respondent has not shown that the proposed corrective measures are inappropriate, nor has the respondent shown that its proposed alternative corrective measures, to the extent that we can identify them, are appropriate. So I would adopt the proposed order. Commissioner Janeka.
I am in agreement. I appreciate your laying out the reasoning. I will add on the last point, the decision may look a little different to me if the respondent were still in discussion with our executive director about a potential application for permission to pursue that remedial alternative. But I'm in agreement.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
I'm in agreement as well.
Okay. Colleagues, there were a few minor changes that I would make. And they're as follows. At finding of fact 2, I would strike a reference to residential subdivision. I don't believe that's reflected in the site development plan. At finding of fact 30C, I would replace the term discrete with the term quarterly, just to accurately reflect the penalty calculation worksheet. This would not change the amount of the penalty. It's just being more faithful to that document. And finally, at conclusion of law 7, I would want to quote the full definition of that's laid out at 33951.3, the definition of closed municipal solid waste landfill. And I'll go ahead and read those changes into a motion. And if there's any discussion on the other side, we can take it then. Colleagues, I move that we adopt the administrative law judge's proposed order as modified by the executive director's exceptions and recommended by the administrative law judge in her reply letter dated June 27, 2024, with the following additional modifications. In finding of fact number 2, remove the term quote and residential subdivision, end quote, to reflect the information in the record about the proposed site development. In finding of fact 30C, replace the term discrete with the term quarterly in the descriptor of the type of violation event. And in conclusion of law number 7, to reflect the complete definition set forth at 30 Texas Administrative Code, section 330.9513, replace, quote, a permitted or previously permitted MSW landfill and a MSW landfill which has never been permitted, end quote, with the following, quote, a permitted or previously permitted municipal solid waste landfill, a municipal solid waste landfill which has never been permitted, or a dumping area as defined in 30 Texas Administrative Code, section 330.951, which stopped receiving waste and completed the closure activities, end quote. And that is my motion.
I'll second it.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, are you ready? Please call the next item.
Thank you.
Item number 2 is the consideration of whether to affirm, modify, or set aside the emergency order appointing a temporary manager for the public water system owned by David Gilat, Lanai Gilat, and operated by Sangfet Somenifon. The ED should speak first as the movement, followed by the respondents, if present. The hearing questers, presently we have no one signed in. Aqua Texas, the temporary manager, if present, and OPIC. We recommend a 5-minute time limit on each party's presentation, and the ED may reserve time for rebuttal as the ED bears the burden of proof.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. My name is Benjamin Worms, and I'm an attorney in the Litigation Division representing the Executive Director. With me today is Kristen Hernandez with the Water Supply Division, and we're joined online by Crystal Watkins of the Dallas-Fort Worth Regional Office. Item number 2 concerns the emergency order appointing a temporary manager of the utility owned by David Gilat, Lanai Gilat, and operated by Sungfet Suamanafan. David Gilat and Lanai Gilat own the real property that the utility facilities are located on, and Sungfet Suamanafan has maintained operational control of the utility since at least February of 2017, doing business as TL Water Jones Acres. Since 2018, there have been 10 complaints made to the TCEQ about issues at the utility, alleging persistent low water pressure, water outages, and discolored and foul-smelling water. In 2020, TCEQ issued a default order against Sungfet Suamanafan, doing business as TL Water Jones Acres, finding 32 violations of TCEQ rules and requiring corrective actions. On April 1st of 2022, TCEQ referred Mr. Suamanafan to the Office of the Attorney General for civil enforcement on his non-compliance with that default order. That referral resulted in the 98th District Court of Travis County issuing a final default judgment and permanent injunction against Mr. Suamanafan on July 13th of 2023. Since the July 2023 default judgment was issued, TCEQ has not received or found any evidence or indication that any actions have been taken to bring the utility into compliance with either the TCEQ default order or the district court's default judgment. This long-term neglect for the utility and the utility's customers and the non-compliance with orders of both the commission and the district court led the executive director to determine that the utility had been abandoned and that appointment of a temporary manager was necessary. On July 19th, 2024, Aqua Texas LLC was appointed as temporary manager. Since the appointment, Aqua Texas has worked to stabilize the utility. On August 6th, the utility suffered a water outage due to failure of its well pump. The temporary manager hauled water to the system, issued a boil water notice, and worked to fix the pump, restoring water service on August 8th. The utility experienced a second water outage on August 29th due to disconnection of the electrical service that was still in Mr. Suamanafan's name. The temporary manager worked with the electrical service provider and was able to restore power and water service the following day. This order appoints a temporary manager for a period of 360 days. During this time, TCEQ staff will continue to work with the temporary manager to facilitate long-term stable service for the customers of the utility. The executive director respectfully requests that you affirm the July 19th, 2024 emergency order with the modifications as recommended by the executive director to correct various typographical errors. Thank you. We're available to answer any questions you may have, and I will reserve the remainder of my time. Thank you, Mr. Worms. Colleagues, any questions for ED staff? Seeing none.
Currently, we have no one signed in for the respondents, but if there is someone from the respondents.
I don't see anyone in the room. Is there anybody joining us virtually who wants to or who does represent the respondents? Okay, let's move on.
So Public Interest Counsel for the record. OPIC has reviewed this item and agrees with the executive director that the requirements for an emergency order contained in chapters 5 and 13 of the Texas Water Code have been met, and that issuance of this emergency order was both necessary and appropriate. The 40 connections at issue in this matter deserve continuous, adequate, and safe drinking water for themselves, their families, and their children. The owners of the utility appear to have abandoned it completely after accruing massive violations and penalties, and it is therefore with a sense of relief that we recommend affirming this emergency order, making a company with the resources and the expertise of Aqua Texas, which operates nearly 400 public water systems in this state alone, as the temporary manager of the utility until a receiver may be arranged. Thank you. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. And Mr. Worms, I'm not sure that I heard anything to rebut. Perhaps you did?
I have nothing else. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate that. Colleagues, I certainly appreciate Aqua Texas stepping in and serving these, the members of this community. I think we should affirm the emergency order.
I'm in agreement. I would move that we adopt the executive director's proposed order affirming with modifications the ED's July 19, 2024 emergency order.
Second it.
The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, when you're ready, please call the next item.
Item number 3 is the consideration of the application by Alleytown Resource Company LLC to renew air quality permit number 105998. The parties have been notified that the commissioners will not take oral argument but may ask questions, and those signed who have signed in will be noted for the record.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Colleagues, I agree with the executive director and OPIC that we're required to deny this hearing request under Texas Health and Safety Code section 382.056G. That's the so-called no increase renewal provision. This renewal does not seek it to increase emissions, and because the applicant's compliance history is classified as high, I see no right to a hearing here.
I agree.
I'm also in agreement. I move that we find that there is no right to a hearing on this application pursuant to Texas Health and Safety Code section 382.056, that we deny all hearing requests, and that we issue the renewal of air quality permit number 105998 to Alleytown Resource Company LLC, formerly Argos USA LLC, as recommended by the executive director, and that we adopt the executive director's response to comments.
I second the motion.
The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, when you're ready, please call item 4.
Item 4 is the consideration of the application by College Mound Special Utility District and Post Oak MHC LLC for new TIPD's permit number WQ0016312001. The parties have been notified that the commissioners will not take oral argument but may ask questions, and those who have signed in will be noted for the record.
So colleagues, we have a single hearing request on this item. The city of Terrell has raised concerns about regionalization, anti-degradation, notice requirements, the completeness of the application, and nuisance odors. The proposed facility is within a half mile of the city's corporate limits and the city's extraterritorial jurisdiction. Relevant to regionalization, the city owns an existing wastewater treatment facility that's within 3 miles of the proposed facility. I think the city's interests are clearly implicated, so I would grant its request and refer the matter with the issues I mentioned. And again, those are regionalization, anti-degradation, notice, application completeness, and nuisance odors. Commissioner Janeka.
I'm in agreement.
Agreement.
I move that we grant the city of Terrell's request for hearing, that we deny the city of Terrell's request for reconsideration, and that we refer the application to SOA for a contested case hearing on the following issues with a concurrent referral to the ADR program. Issue A, whether the draft permit complies with the commission's regionalization policy in accordance with Texas Water Code section 26.081 and 26.0282. And issue B, whether the draft permit complies with applicable anti-degradation requirements. Issue C, whether the application is administratively and technically complete. Issue D, whether the draft permit adequately addresses nuisance odor in accordance with 30 Texas Administrative Code, Section 309.13, and issue E, whether the applicants substantially complied with applicable notice requirements. I finally move that we set a hearing duration of 180 days from the date of the preliminary hearing until the proposal for decision is issued.
Second the motion.
And I'll just make a quick note before I call for a vote, and I'm glad you picked up on it, Commissioner Ginecca, but I failed to mention the request for reconsideration, which I would deny because it was not accompanied by facts that would support reconsideration. So I'm in full agreement with that. Thanks for cleaning it up. The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Ms. Smith, when you're ready, please call the next item.
Item number 5 is the consideration of the Office of Public Interest Counsel's 2024 annual report. And OPIC, our Public Interest Counsel, Mr. Arthur, is here to present.
Mr. Arthur.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. For the record, I'm Garrett Arthur, TCEQ Public Interest Counsel. Texas Water Code Section 5.2725 requires that OPIC annually report to the Commission and provide 1, an evaluation of the office's performance in representing the public interest in the preceding year, 2, an assessment of the budget needs of the office, including the need to contract for outside expertise, and 3, any recommended legislative or regulatory changes. The written report before you is intended to satisfy the statutory requirement for fiscal year 2024. First, the report evaluates OPIC's representation of the public interest by using previously identified performance measures in 4 types of proceedings: environmental, district, rulemaking, and enforcement. For each proceeding type, these performance measures show 100% participation by OPIC. This section also provides a real-world example of how OPIC fulfills its statutory duty to represent the public interest. Second, the report assesses OPIC's budget needs, including a discussion of contracting for outside technical support. Finally, Attachment 1 to the report contains a recommended regulatory change. Specifically, OPIC recommends that the MTO rule, 30 TAC Section 50.139, be amended to require that an MTO raise sufficient legal or factual bases within the Commission's jurisdiction to determine that the ED acted erroneously. We believe that adding minimum content requirements to the MTO rule would serve the public interest by giving the public, agency staff, and the Commission a review standard against which an MTO can be measured. To conclude, OPIC appreciates this opportunity to review its work and recommits to its statutory directive to protect the public interest. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Arthur. I have none at the moment. Colleagues, any questions? Ms. Smith, has anybody signed in to speak?
No one has signed in on this item.
Let's hear from Executive Director staff. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. On behalf of the Executive Director, I am Charmaine Backens with the Office of Legal Services. The Executive Director appreciates the report and the Office of Public Interest Counsel's representation of the public interest. OPIC's regulatory change recommendation proposes to amend Section 50.139 of Chapter 50, Entitled 30 of the Texas Administrative Code, relating to motion to overturn Executive Director's decision. The amendment would add minimum content requirements, specifying what a movement must include in a motion to overturn the Executive Director's decision. A movement must raise sufficient legal or factual bases within the Commission's jurisdiction to determine that the Executive Director acted erroneously. If the Executive Director's decision or action includes findings of fact or conclusions of law, the motion must identify those with particularity that are the subject of the movement's complaint. The motion must also identify any evidentiary or legal ruling claimed to be erroneous. A movement likely would have to possess some special knowledge or have some legal experience to understand the requirements and successfully implement them. A movement must be able to answer questions such as, what is a legal or factual basis? What is the applicable law? What are the relevant facts? Are they sufficient to support the motion? Are they within the commission's jurisdiction? In a complex matter, a movement must be able to read and understand often voluminous technical findings of fact and sometimes complicated conclusions of law and state which support his motion. A movement represented by competent legal counsel should be able to identify erroneous evidentiary or legal rulings, but a pro se movement likely would have difficulty doing so. As drafted, the proposed amendment may serve to dissuade or frustrate a movement. Although Section 5139 provides no required contents or standard of review, the executive director believes the section may provide more flexibility for members of the public filing a motion to overturn to tell their story and verbalize their complaint. Additionally, when warranted, the general counsel requests briefing from the executive director and the public interest counsel, providing an adequate opportunity to include additional information for the commission to consider and to complete the administrative record. The executive director believes that the current practice promotes substance over form and offers the general public greater accessibility to the filing of a motion to overturn the executive director's action. Overall, the resource cost of amending the rule to include the proposed language or something similar would not seem to provide a commensurate benefit to executive director staff or to the public. Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Backins. Colleagues, any questions for ED staff? Seeing none. Mr. Arthur, thank you for the report. I'm always impressed with OPIC's performance against your metrics, outperforming them consistently. Even more than that, I'm impressed with the quality of your lawyer's legal analysis. I rely on it heavily. I don't always agree with it, but it's always helpful. I appreciate that. I think I'll pause there with respect to the rulemaking recommendation. I'll let my colleagues take that one up first. Commissioner Janeka, what are your thoughts?
I appreciate that, and I never blanch from a good opportunity to charge into fun policy questions. I too want to commend OPIC on the progress portions of the report. I really appreciate both the clear numerical exceeding expectations data that you support OPIC's work with, but I agree with the chairman's take on the quality of I've often really been grateful for how significantly the record really appears to be completed and filled in by aspects OPIC has highlighted in their engagement with that important process. So I appreciate that, and I think that's hard to reflect, to score and take credit in this sort of an exercise. I will address the recommendation portion, and I appreciate OPIC highlighting the inconsistency from the perspective of the public engaging with our agency. For those who may have submitted a request for reconsideration or a motion for rehearing and encountered our explicit content requirements in that path, would be surprised to find it missing in our MTO process. But in looking at the substance of the specific proposal and wrestling with that apparent gap, I'm not sure that I see. I arrive with Edie's analysis on this one. I think the juice ain't worth the squeeze in terms of trying to take on a rulemaking, open up the potential questions around it, modify our process there. It does offer the potential to frustrate and complicate from the public's perspective in offering the specificity, where I could see this guidance come valuable to the members of the public to be alerted that that may help strengthen a motion to overturn request. But in terms of moving forward today, I think I'm comfortable continuing to pause and not taking action on the recommendation before us.
Thank you, Commissioner Gonzalez.
I don't have much more to add. I do always appreciate OPIC's view on things. You always highlight issues that, maybe I hadn't thought about initially. And so I think, your lawyers do a terrific job as well, but I'm in agreement with my colleagues.
And with respect to the rule recommendation, I think I'm in the same place. So I believe we're ready for a motion.
I would move that we decline to initiate OPIC's recommended rulemaking regarding amendments to 30 Texas Administrative Code 50.139 concerning a motion to overturn the executive director's decision based on current statutory authority, agency resources, and a lack of compelling necessity, the commission declines to initiate rulemaking.
I second the motion.
The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Ms. Smith, when you're ready, please call the next items.
We're going to take up the next 4 items together, and those are items 6 through 9. They are the consideration of the fiscal year 2025 proposed assessments for annual costs for water master operations in the Rio Grande Water Division, the South Texas Water Division, the Concho River Water Master Program, and the Brazos Water Master Program. The executive director's staff is here to present these items.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. My name is Jose Pepe Davila, a Water Master Section Manager with the Water Availability Division. With me today is Kim Nygren with the Water Availability Division. Aubrey Pobelka with the Environmental Law Division is present online. The staff are here to request the approval of the fiscal year 2025 assessments for the 4 Water Master programs, Rio Grande, South Texas, Concho, and Brazos. We have prepared the assessment to cover costs of the Water Master programs. The increases in state employee salaries translated into increases for all Water Master program budgets. South Texas program is to increase by 5.8%, Rio Grande program by 5.4%, Brazos program by 5.1%, and the Concho program by 3.3%. Our operational budgets remain relatively flat across fiscal year 24 and 25, largely due to the use of budgetary savings to purchase vehicles, equipment, supplies, and services. Notice of the proposed assessments was provided to all water holders in June. Water holders were encouraged to attend and participate in the July Water Master Advisory Committee meetings. At the July meetings, assessment budgets were presented and feedback from the committees was considered. All 4 Water Master Advisory Committees voted to recommend approval of assessment budgets before you today. Thank you, and we are available to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Davila. I have none. Any questions, colleagues? Ms. Smith, has anybody signed in to speak?
We have someone signed in on 6 who's available for questions, but no one is asked to address the commission.
Okay, Mr. Arthur, what says OPIC?
OPIC supports approval of the Rio Grande, South Texas, Concho River, and Brazos Water Master budgets for FY25 and issuance of the ED's proposed orders assessing the annual costs of these Water Master programs.
Thank you, Mr. Arthur. Colleagues, I do as well. I greatly appreciate the work of our staff, the work of the Water Master Advisory Committees. Certainly relevant that the committees have recommended approval on this matter. I think the budgets and assessments are appropriate. I'm ready to move forward.
I'm as well. I wanted to just take the opportunity to note 2 things, and that was one, first and foremost, I'm soberly noting that there is a fee increase here. There is a piece of that tracks back to a very important stretch piece that I note our agency has succeeded in paying our staff a little better, and then that falls down into the fee. Our public that we serve bear part of the burden there. So I'm sensitive to that. I want to reassure the public that we take seriously that responsibility, and I think that turning to the quality of that, what's the bang for your buck you're getting? I think the Water Master staff are performing incredible work, and I'm always troubled to see how much work they're tasked with from across our state, answering very acute questions around urgent water availability needs. So I really appreciate the work that they do. I think it's very good work, and the basins where this has been identified as a need, it's clearly bringing value. So I wanted to brag on our staff attached to it, but also just note and state the appreciation there from the state's perspective in terms of where that value of the public is coming. I think it's an important and worthwhile thing.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other discussion?
No other discussion.
I think we're ready for a motion.
I move that we approve the Concho River, Rio Grande, South Texas, and Brazos Water Master budgets for fiscal year 2025 and issue the executive director's 4 proposed orders assessing the annual cost of those water master programs.
I second the motion.
The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, please call the next item.
Item number 10 is the consideration of the executive director's findings and recommendations on whether a water master should be appointed for the Neches and Sabine River basins. And Edie is here to present the item.
Good morning again.
Good morning again. Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. My name is Jose Pepe Davila, Water Master Section Manager with the Water Section Manager with the Water Availability Division. With me today is Kim Nygren with the Water Availability Division. Aubrey Pobelka with the Environmental Law Division is present online. In accordance with Chapter 11, Subchapter G, Sections 11.36 G and H of the Texas Water Code, the Secretary Director is required to evaluate each river basin that does not have a water master program at least once every 5 years to determine whether a water master should be appointed. We are to report the findings and make recommendations to the Commission. During fiscal year 2024, we evaluated the Neches and Sabine River basins. The evaluation was based on the criteria and factors determined by the Commission. The 3 primary criteria evaluated were: number 1, were there any court orders to create a water master? Number 2, have any petitions been received requesting a water master? And number 3, have senior water rights been threatened? 2 letters were mailed to stakeholders throughout the basins on March 7, 2024 and May 7, 2024 to notify them of the evaluation process, as well as their ability to attend meetings and to offer comments. 3 stakeholder meetings were held in person on June 10th, June 11th, and June 12th. 1 additional stakeholder meeting was held virtually on June 13th. During the comment period, 7 opposed, 1 in favor, and 1 neutral comments were received for the Neches River Basin. 6 opposed, 1 neutral, and none were received in favor for the Sabine River Basin. Comments received were made available in the agenda documents that were filed today for today's meeting. We no court orders or petitions to create a water master during the 2019 through 2023 period, as well as no repeated history of threatened water rights. The Secretary Director recommends that the Commission not move forward on its own motion to create a water master program for the Neches and Sabine River basins currently. Thank you. We are available to answer any questions you all may have.
Thank you again, Mr. Davila. I have none. Questions, colleagues? Seeing none, Ms. Smith, is anybody signed in to speak?
No one is signed in on this item.
Mr. Arthur, what's the view from OPIC?
OPIC appreciates the ED's evaluation and report of their findings and recommendations.
Thank you. Colleagues, I agree that there's no reason to appoint a water master for these basins.
And I don't know that we need to take formal action.
I guess that's true. You get into the rhythm of these things and you get used to motions. And yeah, thank you for pointing that out, Commissioner. Ms. Smith, let's move on to the next items. When you're ready, please
Thank
call
you.
the enforcement docket. Thank you again, Mr. Davila.
Well, that will take us to our enforcement docket. Today, those are items 11 through 22, and the executive director's staff is here to present these matters.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. For the record, my name is Michael Parrish of the Enforcement Division, and with me today are Melissa Cordell, also of the Enforcement Division, and Gitanjali Yadav of the Litigation Division, representing the Executive Director. Pending before you are items 11 through 22. The total assessed administrative penalties are $310,353 with $42,088 deferred, $44,940 applied towards supplemental environmental projects, and $223,325 to the general revenue. We respectfully request approval of these items and are available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Parrish. I have none. Any questions, colleagues? Seeing none, Ms. Smith, is anybody signed in to speak?
So on item 18, we have an individual signed in, but they don't wish to address the commission. They're just available if there are any questions. And then on item 13, we have Mr. Ahmed Johar signed in. And if he is still available online, he would have 3 minutes to address the commission.
Mr. Johar, are you there?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. If you'll just state your name and then the floor is yours, sir.
Yes, my name is Ahmed Johar.
And then go ahead and
I-
share with us whatever thoughts you want to share with us.
Okay, I need this case to be dismissed because we shut down the business. We sold the equipment for somebody, and I provide all the evidence of the new owner, and he have the new registration with the city of Dallas. So he can apply for permit. In the beginning, in 2020, we tried to, when we got the shop for my son, we tried to get the permit for, it's called Certificate of Occupancy from City of Dallas, but because the Corona shut down, and we tried that one after like 2 years, tried to comply with City of Dallas to do any permit. We cannot do any permit without the Certificate of Occupancy. The one doesn't provide us. So in the 2023, we went to City of Dallas again, and they make us pay again another $325 for Certificate of Occupancy so we can practice work. And they said, okay, don't worry, you know, we're gonna make it, and they don't make it. Till the end, we get tired of this business, and we decide, after losing money in it, we decide to get rid of the business, and we sold the equipment to somebody, and now they are a new owner there, and they're gonna apply for permit because they went to the city about 2 weeks to get the certificate of occupancy. Finally, they got it in their name, and they are going to apply the permit with you guys as for the environment. So please, I need this case to be dismissed without any penalty, because we really wasn't our fault. If we have the certificate of occupancy, we will do the permit, and it's so easy. But since we cannot do the permit because we don't have a certificate of occupancy, so I appreciate your help, and really we need this case to be dismissed because I provide also the shutdown of the Joharski is shut down. You can see in front of you of the Secretary of State, and the business no more longer for us. We have nothing there to do. We've been out 2 months now. So you guys can check there or just dismiss it without any penalty. I really appreciate your help.
Thank you, Mr. Johar. I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Sorry your business wasn't successful. I'd like to give the executive director an opportunity to respond to that.
Geetanjali Yadav with the Litigation Division. So item 13 is a default order that's the result of respondent failing to appear at a SOA evidentiary hearing. So the main question is whether respondent had notice of that hearing. And the relevant procedural timeline is that on January 11th, 2024, a preliminary hearing was held. Respondent participated via Zoom. A procedural schedule was established and electronic service was agreed to. The ALJ issued order number 5, memorializing the hearing schedule, including the evidentiary hearing date, which was June 25th, 2024. And a copy of order number 5 was sent to respondent. Respondent did not appear at the scheduled evidentiary hearing on June 25th. Before granting the default dismissal requested by the executive director, the judge made note of order number 5 and concluded that respondent did have adequate notice. So we would re-urge issuance of this default order and think it's appropriate.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions for ED staff? Mr. Arthur, does OPIC have anything to add on this item 13?
Chairman, I do not. We concur with the ED on this matter and would just, emphasize that this is a default and respondent failed to appear.
Yeah, thank you. Ms. Smith, is anybody else signed in to speak on this docket?
No.
Mr. Arthur, let me go back to you on any thoughts from OPIC on the rest of the docket.
We reviewed each of these enforcement items and we support adoption of all the orders presented by ED staff.
All right, thank you for that. Colleagues, what are your thoughts? Commissioner Janeka?
I'm in support of all the items before us today as they're recommended by the executive director. And to Mr. Johar, I want to say thank you for taking your time to come and provide us your input and request today. Apologize well, it's not, in my opinion, appropriate for our agency's process to grant your request. So I do appreciate you taking the time to participate in the process. And
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gonzalez,
I'm in agreement.
I think we're ready for a motion.
I move that we adopt items 11 through 22 as recommended today by the executive director.
I second the motion.
The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, when you're ready, please call the next item.
That takes us to item 23, which is the quadrennial rule review for Chapter 35 of Texas Administrative Code, Title 30, and the executive director's staff is here to present that matter.
Good morning, Ms. Rico.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. On behalf of the Executive Director, I am Gwen Rico with the General Law Division. Pending before you is item 23, the adopted rule review of 30 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 35, emergency and temporary orders and permits, temporary suspensions, or amendment of permit conditions. As required by Texas Government Code, Section 2001.039, Executive Director's staff conducted a rule review of this chapter to determine if the need for the rules within this chapter continue to exist. The proposed notice for this review was published in the May 31st, 2024 issue of the Texas Register with a 30-day comment period, and no comments were received for this rule review. Based on the review of this chapter, the Executive Director has determined that the reasons for the rules in Chapter 35 continue to exist, and changes to the rules identified as part of this review process will be addressed in a separate rulemaking action in accordance with the Texas Administrative Procedure Act. In conclusion, we respectfully recommend approval of the adoption of the rule review of Chapter 35, and staff requests authorization to make non-substantive revisions necessary to comply with Texas Register requirements. Thank you. The project manager and staff attorney assigned to this chapter are available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Rico. I'm guessing that we have none. So I'm just going to go straight to whether anybody has signed in to speak. I'm guessing we have none.
No.
So let's go to Mr. Arthur.
For this quad review, OPIC considered three things. One, whether public comments were received. Two, whether any rules were found obsolete. And three, whether the rules are still needed. No public comments were received and no rules were found obsolete. The Chapter 35 rules are still needed to implement the Commission's authority under Texas Water Code Chapter 5, Subchapter L, to issue temporary or emergency mandatory, permissive, or prohibitory orders, and by these orders to issue temporary permits or temporarily suspend or amend permit conditions. We support readoption of Chapter 35.
Thank you, Mr. Arthur. Colleagues, I agree with ED and OPIC. I would readopt.
Likewise, we fortunately or otherwise, we have a great reminder of that on our docket.
True. We've used the rules today.
I would move that we adopt the rule reviews and readopt the rules in 30 Texas Administrative Code Chapters 35 without amendment as recommended by the Executive Director.
I second that.
The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, please call the next item.
The next item is our public comment session. The commission will receive comments from the public on matters within the jurisdiction of the TCEQ in accordance with Texas Water Code Section 5.112. The commission may not hear comment on pending permit matters or other contested cases, enforcement matters, for example. These are subject to a prohibition found in the Texas Government Code that prohibits the commission from commenting or hearing about these items without all of the parties present. So in the interest of time, speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each with a total time for public comment limited to 1 hour. Please note that the commission's discussion of subjects for which public notice has not been given are limited to statements of specific factual responses and recitation of existing policy. And with that, the first person I have on my list is Mr. Errol Summerlin.
Mr. Summerlin, are you there?
Can you hear me, sir?
Loud and clear. If
My
you'll just-
name is Errol Sumlin. I have a home in Portland, Texas. I'm a co-founder of CAVE, the Coastal Alliance to Protect Our Environment. I've lived in Portland for 40 years, working in Corpus Christi, traveling across Nueces Bay Boulevard all those years. What I witnessed quite remarkable. In 1984, Refinery Row was an established legacy. I don't have to tell you about Refinery Row, but for the public, I'll just say it's a massive industrial complex. But heavy industry has been there since the late 1920s, and over time moved as close to the residents as they dared. Well, the white residents anyway. But after Citgo took the final piece of property along the Inner Harbor Ship Channel in 1980, ultimately obliterating a portion of the Oak Lawn subdivision and creating a buffer zone for the Hillcrest neighborhood, things were pretty quiet for 25 years. No real expansions. Local TCEQ staff concentrated on monitoring and enforcement. We even had a TCEQ mobile monitoring unit to assist. That tranquility was busted when Las Brisas came to town, a nasty facility. The community was outraged, and after a full evidentiary hearing, the administrative law judge's recommendation to deny the permit was ignored by the commission. Disregarding the evidence has become a pattern for the commission, routinely casting aside recommendations of those judges, something we'll come back to in the days ahead. In the end, the community won. Las Brisas giving up and never building, though they had the support of the commission. Then along came industrial district agreements, Chapter 313 agreements, port purchase of thousands of acres in Sanpac County, the annexation of vast lands in Sanpac County by the city of Corpus Christi, and mobile monitoring by the TCEQ ceased to exist. Just 10 years ago this year, you granted permits to Cheniere, Verstapini, M&G residents, and the race was on. Industry has exploded since then in Sanpac County, and the stage is set for new industries in Nueces County, moving off Refinery Row deeper into cotton fields and neighborhoods. The commission has enabled it all, and the industry takes advantage of your acquiescence, ignoring or otherwise manipulating the rules in total disregard for public health and the ecology of the region. Finally, your pattern of dismissing the recommendations of administrative law judges is the most egregious affront to due process in the state of Texas. And we're going to talk more about that in the days and months ahead. I want to thank you for your time today. I know my 3 minutes is probably up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Summerlin. We appreciate you joining us and sharing your thoughts.
The next person on my list is Cindy Valdez.
Ms. Valdez? Ms. Valdez, are you there? Maybe we come back.
Yeah. The next person on my list is Annie Spade.
Good morning. Might take your comments from the podium there. Yes, thank you. And make sure you've got a light turned on that microphone.
Push. There we go.
We got you. Thank you.
Great.
Go
Good
ahead when you're
morning.
ready.
Good morning. My name is Annie Spade. I live at 13508 Trail Driver here in Austin. I am here this morning because I deeply appreciate the importance of the work of this commission. I was born in Midland, Texas, and grew up down the street from the Bushes. When I was 16, we moved across state to Houston. My father worked for Texaco his entire career. Then, in his lengthy retirement, Dad served his municipal utility district on the board of directors for more than 20 years. He is now 95, and with all of his life experiences, my father is very concerned about our younger generations. What will Texas offer to support their future? Recently, I retired from 40 years working with preschoolers in Montessori education, and I am blessed to have all 5 of my granddaughters living here in Central Texas nearby. Most of these children I love and have worked with should easily live to see the 22nd century, thriving with personal health and vitality while enjoying the beauty, grandeur, and opportunities Texas offers. But I too am more and more concerned for our future generations these days because I see that our climate, air, and water quality are gravely threatened by industrial development that is not forward-thinking, not truly minimizing impacts on public health and safety. I attended TCEQ's public meeting in Portland just last Wednesday regarding the ammonia plant in Ingleside. And I attended another public meeting earlier this year about a proposal to put the first wastewater ever into Barton Creek to accommodate an outdoor music venue. Ordinary people and communities are worried and suffering across Texas. We need the commission to look at cumulative impacts of multiple facilities to aggregate their total emissions rather than treating each unit separately in determining whether the facility meets standards. In many ways, our children's future lies squarely in your hands, Commission. Today, my father and I are urging you to exercise the greatest care and adopt a long and broader view as you deliberate on issues across Texas. I thank you for your kind attention, and I plan to see you again.
Thank you very much, Ms. Spade. We appreciate you being here in person as well. Thank you.
Yes.
Would you like to go back to Cindy Valdez?
Let's do that. Ms. Valdez, are you with us? Ms. Valdez? We're sorry to miss you this time around, but we'll be here for the next public comment session, and hopefully you can join us at that time. Anybody else? Is there anybody else signed in to speak?
No one else is signed in.
All right, then let's move on to the next items.
Items 25 through 28 are for executive session. The commission will meet in closed session in room 247 of the Workforce Commission as permitted by the Open Meetings Act, including Texas Government Code sections 551, 071, and 074 to take up matters pursuant to these items. And shall we meet? Do you want to meet right away? Do you want to take a 5-minute break?
We meet right away.
Okay.
Why don't we
So-
meet at 10:40?
10:40.
Yeah. The time is 10:34 and we are in recess.
The commission met in room 247 of the Workforce Commission for closed session from 10:40 until 10:50 a.m. on item number 25 as posted in notice pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551074. No action was taken. This agenda stands adjourned and the time is 11:01.